There comes a moment when the pressure inside you builds to a point where pretending everything is fine is no longer possible, and the walls you built to keep yourself together start to crumble. Despite your best efforts, you feel the weight of choices, the weight of people's expectations, the weight of your own inner critic stacking heavier and heavier until standing tall is no longer an option. And instead of fighting the breaking point, you finally allow yourself to collapse, not because you are weak, but because you are human, because the constant effort to hold yourself together became more painful than falling apart. The breaking point is often messy and unpredictable. It does not wait for the right time. It arrives when you are already exhausted and barely holding on. It may come after years of pushing down emotions or after one single moment that cracks. You open it might be the quiet drive home when tears blur your vision, or the late night staring at the ceiling when you cannot silence the noise in your mind. It could be the moment you stop arguing with someone because you realize the fight is no longer worth it, whatever it looks like. It is the moment you finally admit something has to change. It is not easy to let yourself break. Society teaches us to be strong at all costs, to keep smiling, to keep showing up, to keep pretending we are fine. But pretending only works until the pain becomes louder than the mask you wear. The breaking point strips away the illusion and forces you to confront the truth about where you are in life. It is terrifying because it feels like losing control, but it is also freeing because for the first time you stop lying to yourself about what is hurting you. This collapse is the start of transformation. It is the point where you no longer cling to what is no longer working. It is the moment you stop patching the cracks and instead allow the old structure to fall completely so something better can be built in its place. When you reach this point, you realize that breaking was not the end. It was the doorway to something new. You begin to see that the things you thought were keeping you safe were actually keeping you stuck and letting them go, even though painful is what gives you the chance to breathe again. In this breaking, there is clarity. Pain has a way of showing you what truly matters. It strips away the noise and distractions and leaves you face to face with your deepest values and desires. It shows you what you can no longer tolerate and what you desperately need. It forces you to look at the patterns you have repeated for years and ask yourself if you are willing to keep living this way. And in that moment, you see that breaking is not punishment. It is the invitation to finally choose differently. When you stand in the middle of that brokenness, you may feel empty and lost, but it is in that emptiness where the rebuilding begins. You are no longer who you were yesterday, and that can feel scary, but it also means you are free to create something new. Every choice becomes a building block. Every decision becomes a brick in the foundation of the future you are constructing. And though it feels heavy at first, this is the moment where strength is quietly being formed deep within you. Letting go of the old self is one of the most difficult steps because it feels like you are tearing away pieces of your own identity. The patterns you built over years become comfortable even when they hurt you. The habits you formed, even the unhealthy ones, feel familiar and safe. Walking away from them feels like walking into the unknown, yet deep down, you know that holding on to them is the very reason you feel trapped. So you begin to loosen your grip on the things that no longer serve you, slowly at first as fear whispers to hold on, but eventually with more courage as you see that freedom waits on the other side. This process demands honesty with yourself. It asks you to stop pretending that certain relationships are healthy when they are draining you. It asks you to admit that some of your choices are keeping you small and that some of your coping mechanisms have turned into chains. It is painful because the old self does not want to die. It will cling to what is familiar and convince you that change is too risky. But the moment you start shedding what no longer fits, you feel a weight lift as if you are finally making space to breathe. Sometimes letting go means stepping away from people who cannot meet you where you are going. Even if you care about them, it may mean creating distance from toxic influences and recognizing that loyalty to others cannot come at the cost of loyalty to yourself. It might mean leaving a job that crushes your spirit or ending a routine that keeps you stuck. It can even mean letting go of parts of your personality you once thought defined you, like always being the caretaker or the peacemaker or the one who never says no. The old self is made of stories you tell yourself, and many of those stories were written during moments of pain. Maybe you were told you were not enough, so you worked tirelessly to prove your worth. Maybe you believed that love had to be earned, so you stayed in situations that hurt you. Maybe you convinced yourself that being small and quiet was safer than being fully seen. Letting go means rewriting those stories, not erasing your past, but refusing to let it control how you see yourself in the present. As you release these old versions of yourself, you begin to notice the quiet space that opens up inside you. It feels strange at first, like you are empty, but that emptiness is fertile ground for something new. It is the space where healing can take root, where new beliefs can grow, where you start to decide who you want to be. Not based on survival, but based on possibility. Letting go clears the clutter of old pain so that you can finally build a life that feels like yours. Each time you choose to let go, you reclaim a piece of your power. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. You realize that you are not who you used to be, and that is not a loss, but a transformation. The old self served its purpose. It got you here. It taught you lessons. It helped you survive. But now its time has passed, and you are ready to become someone stronger, someone freer, someone who does not just exist, but fully lives. Embracing discomfort is where real transformation begins, because growth does not happen in the safety of what is familiar. It happens when you are willing to stand in the middle of pain without running from it. Discomfort has a way of revealing what you are truly made of. It shows you how much strength you actually carry when you stop numbing yourself and start feeling everything you once tried to avoid. There is fear in this step because pain is raw and unpredictable, but it is also the teacher that guides you toward the life you have been craving. When you decide to face discomfort, you stop seeing it as something to escape and start seeing it as something to learn. From every difficult emotion becomes a messenger. Sadness tells you what you care about. Anger shows you where your boundaries have been crossed. Fear reveals what matters to you enough that you do not want to lose it. By leaning into these emotions instead of pushing them away, you begin to uncover truths that were buried beneath distraction and denial, and with each truth you uncover, you gain clarity about who you really are. Discomfort stretches you. It forces you to confront the parts of yourself you have been avoiding for years. It is in the long nights of reflection when you face your regrets. It is in the silence after an argument when you wonder what role you played. It is in the moment you resist the urge to go back to old habits because you know they only lead to more pain. Choosing to sit in that tension teaches you discipline, it teaches you patience, and it builds a resilience that cannot be taken away once it is earned. Leaning into discomfort also teaches you that pain is temporary. It feels eternal when you are in the middle of it. But the more you allow yourself to stay with it, the more you realize that it passes. It moves through you like a wave and leaves you different on the other side. The fear of the pain is almost always worse than the pain itself, and once you have faced it, you carry a new confidence, knowing that you can handle more than you once believed. It is in this space of discomfort that you start to grow stronger. Your mind becomes sharper because you are no longer clouded by avoidance. Your heart becomes softer because you understand what suffering feels like, and you learn to treat others with compassion. Your spirit becomes more grounded because you see that you can survive what you thought would destroy you. The very discomfort you once dreaded becomes the forge that shapes you into someone more capable, more focused, more alive. Every time you choose to embrace discomfort, you take one step closer to the person you were meant to be. You stop letting fear dictate your choices and start making decisions from a place of strength. You realize that pain has a purpose, and that purpose is to strip away everything that is not real, everything that is not aligned, so you can stand in your truth, fully awake, fully present, and ready to create a life that reflects your deepest values. Rebuilding with intention means no longer letting life simply happen to you, but instead becoming deliberate about every choice you make. You start by looking at the pieces of yourself that remain after the breaking and asking which ones are worth keeping, Not everything from your past needs to be thrown away, but not everything deserves to be carried forward either. You begin to rebuild slowly, carefully, choosing what you will believe, what habits you will form, what boundaries you will protect, and what standards you will hold for yourself moving forward. This rebuilding requires clarity about what matters most to you. You start asking better questions like, what kind of person do I want to become? What kind of energy do I want around me? What kind of future do I want to create? Your answers guide the decisions you make and turn into the blueprint for your new life. You are no longer living on autopilot. You are building on purpose. Every step becomes meaningful. Every action becomes a reflection of the future you are committed to creating. You might find yourself building new habits that align with this version of yourself. Habits that protect your mental and emotional health, like saying no when you mean no, or starting your mornings with intention instead of chaos. You build routines that nourish your body and mind. You build relationships that feel mutual and safe. You build boundaries that keep you from falling back into old cycles. This is not easy work because it requires discipline and patience, but every small step you take lays another brick in the foundation of your future. Rebuilding also means redefining your values. You ask yourself what truly matters, and you let that guide your decisions. Maybe you choose honesty over approval. Maybe you choose peace over drama. Maybe you choose courage over comfort. These choices might feel heavy because they often require sacrifice, but they also bring a deep sense of alignment. When your actions match your values, you stop feeling like you are betraying yourself and you start to feel whole again. As you rebuild, you will face temptations to go back to what was familiar because familiarity feels safe, but you remind yourself that you did not come this far just to go back to the same pain you once escaped. You hold steady and stay focused on the vision you have for your life. This is where resilience comes in. You build not just a new life, but a stronger mindset, one that can handle challenges without crumbling, and one that knows the difference between temporary discomfort and permanent damage. With each intentional step, you begin to trust yourself again. You start believing that you can create something meaningful out of the chaos you survived, and this trust becomes your anchor no matter how long the process takes. You keep building brick by brick, day by day, knowing that every choice is shaping the person you are becoming, and every decision is proof that you are no longer just existing. You are actively creating a life that reflects your worth. Becoming unstoppable is the natural result of doing the deep work of breaking, letting go, and rebuilding. You come out of the process with a strength that cannot be shaken because you have already faced the worst and survived. There is a calm confidence that grows inside you, a knowing that you have the ability to handle whatever life throws at you because you have built yourself from the ground up. You are no longer driven by fear or by the need to prove yourself. You move with purpose and with certainty because you know who you are. This stage feels like freedom because you are no longer held back by the old chains that once controlled you. You are not weighed down by other people's expectations or by the false stories you use to tell yourself you are lighter, clearer, and more focused. Every decision you make comes from a place of power, not from desperation. You know how to say yes when it matters and no when it is necessary, and both choices feel equally strong because they are made with full intention. Becoming unstoppable does not mean life suddenly becomes easy. Challenges will still come, but your relationship with them is different now. Instead of seeing them as walls meant to stop you, you see them as tests that remind you of how far you have come. You use them as opportunities to sharpen yourself even more. Every setback becomes feedback. Every failure becomes a stepping stone. You no longer fear falling because you trust your ability to rise again stronger than before. This strength also gives you the courage to take risks you might have avoided in the past. You start going after dreams that once felt too big because you know you have the resilience to handle the process. You no longer wait for the perfect timing or the approval of others. You move forward knowing that action creates clarity and momentum. You stop holding back your voice. You stop hiding your ideas. You step into spaces you once thought were too intimidating and you hold your ground. Your energy begins to inspire others without you even trying. People see the transformation and feel the strength you carry. Not because you are louder, but because you are grounded. You no longer need to convince anyone of your worth. It simply radiates through the way you carry yourself. Your confidence is quiet but unshakable, and it naturally attracts the right people and opportunities into your life. This is the power of becoming unstoppable. You do not force life to bend to your will. You align yourself so fully that life begins to respond to you. With every step forward, you continue to build momentum, and that momentum fuels you to keep going. Even when things get hard, you have learned that discomfort is part of growth, and you no longer run from it. You lean into it, knowing that each challenge is adding another layer of strength, another layer of wisdom. You realize that you are not just rebuilding a life, you are building a legacy, one that reflects the courage it took to break the discipline it took to rebuild, and the unstoppable spirit that will carry you into whatever comes next.